How does publisher support matter when a new character is coming out to a comic? This is a weird topic for me because I think it's pretty obvious, but I've had a lot of questions about this and I've had some arguments about it too. So let me get into it. Hey there, this is Perch. This I think is a to me I thought for a long time this has zero interest as a topic, and then in a video I did a little bit ago, I was talking about Future Foundation and how it became kind of dead on arrival when it was clear the publisher wasn't supporting the book, and I got some pretty hard pushback from some of the let's just say some of the creative team behind that book of saying, that's not true. Fans don't know these things. The retailers know that a book isn't getting that publisher support, but the actual fans, the readers of the comic, they have no idea. So if anyone is tanking this book, it's retailers. It's you who's telling the fan, hey, this book doesn't have a long shelf life. Otherwise, they would never know. They'd buy the book and it would probably survive longer. So it's an interesting take. I completely disagree, and I think I have some. This is one of those kind of. I don't think it's an opinion. I think it's a fact kind of things. You know, One thing that I think is absolutely true, and it's been true for 30 years, is fans are more savvy than people give them credit for. I think that people who come in, they buy comics, they're collectors and everything else. You just think about it. They're having to kind of store, engage, and assess a lot of different information. What artist is on what book, how long is the run going to be. They're thinking about these things. The market value of a comic. They're getting into more than just 22 pages of story. They're actually, they know what's going on in the comic. And they also tend to know when a new series is going to get released and who's the creative team going to be on it, all the rest. They're not getting that information from the shop. Now, granted, I'm not saying this is maybe an opinion part. I'm sure some people do. I'm sure some people go in to the shop, they don't know a book is coming, and they learn about it either through another customer or through the shop owner. But at the end of the day, the most of the readers, the collectors, the fans are getting this information on their own today through the internet, by and large. But it was not uncommon that a lot of people would want previews. You could order and pay for extra previews catalogs, so you could hand them out to readers and collectors. And that was, a lot of people, a reasonable amount of people do that. Wizard was popular in part because people were trying to get that information. So I think it's completely inaccurate to say that fans are just kind of bumbling along, and then the retailer is the one telling them when a comic is going to be a comic or not. Now you look at Future Foundation in particular. That book was canceled prior to issue 2 coming out. So issue 1 came out and then it was canceled between 1 and 2. But regardless of the cancellation, if you just looked at how number 1 was marketed, and it didn't have a slob creative team on it. I mean, Jeremy Whitley had done a number of Marvel titles before, not their big ones. To be fair, he's not coming off the Avengers, but he was a known name, and the artist on the book was a known name. And I mean, in general, it was and it was trying to spin off of Fantastic Four, and there'd been a Future Foundation book before, and so I mean, there's parts of it that it's not like the weirdest shot in the dark that Marvel has done. They've done far far worse, far riskier books. I mean, Mosaic is an. I mean, who saw or wanted that one coming? I mean, there's a book that made no sense. And I mean, even when they started going with Squirrel Girl or America Chavez or some of these, I don't know if they had the same kind of background that a Future Foundation did, including the creative team. I mean, Eric Henderson is a name now, but not when that book first started. Not well. That's not fair. I mean, I'm just saying it's not like Future Foundation was a complete bunch of unknown schlubs, and you could tell from second number 1 it was going to be canceled by the list of creators. If you put that same creative team on, say, Iron Man, that book would have sold because of Iron Man. But it was clear to, I think, anyone paying attention that Marvel, the publisher, didn't particularly care about this title, or just they weren't again, and this is where I get arguments. How dare you say that? Marvel cares about each and every book they publish. Okay, but they definitely show their love and affection in different ways. I think there's a much different way. I mean, look at, for example, Captain Marvel spinoff Star. This is a book that I don't know why is coming, and I don't. I mean, it's not. It's going to be called a limited series by and I think it kind of is now. I don't know. Like all things Marvel and increasingly DC, you're never quite sure. They don't just come out and say it, and it's that old myth I think we've talked about before that if you say it's a limited series, then definitely no one will buy it, which is complete, absolute garbage. From if you take any look at the actual numbers, but regardless, the Star is getting a reasonable amount. Not like, again, not Avengers level, not let's the book. So Iron Man 2020, that's getting a massive amount of marketing. You're getting full page ads, you're getting previews, you're getting push 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 for all the things Iron Man 2020. Of course they have to do this because it's not just a single comic; it's a whole little mini event, and you've got several one shots going in there, and it's you've got a dozen titles or more than a dozen titles, like 20 some odd titles that are going into Iron Man 2020. So of course they're going to market that heavily. They've got a lot riding on it. And then kind of that next step down, like I said, Star is a book that spins out of Captain Marvel, kind of a villain. The Marvel keeps promoting as the breakout character, the character everybody cares about, and everything else, which is kind of is head scratching. I'm not sure where these people are or who they're talking to, but that character, the current Captain Marvel arc, where she kind of gets to has to do an evil deed because she's what she Fox Prime, is that what she is? I don't. Anyway, that storyline is both selling better and has a whole lot more attention than the Star storyline. Star being a character who's like a reality stone as a person, but regardless of all that, it's just it's still getting hype and promotion. Not as much as Iron Man 2020, but a decent amount. And then you get Future Foundation, which even in the solicitations rolled out in kind of a, not even a full page deal. I mean, they just, the weakest amount possible. They ran a few full page ads in a couple places, nowhere where it really mattered. And if you're reading this as a fan, or you're paying any attention to any of this, or you're going on social media and you're saying, hey, what's being promoted by Marvel? This book was DOA. It just they were not pushing it. And so, I mean, it does beg the question, why publish a title at all if you're going to then not really promote it and not put it out there? I mean, it gives it no chance to actually succeed in the market. Or at the very least, if it's going to succeed, you're crippling it so badly that you make it climb a huge uphill battle, and you take a lot of money off the table right from the very start. If it does have a chance of succeeding, its odds are like 1 in 20 at that point. So, but the argument, the crux of this video is I think it's not an unknown when the publisher doesn't support a title. Fans can all see it in a number of different ways. They can see it in how people talk about the book. They can see it in how the publisher markets the book. They can see if maybe the comic is using characters. In this case, Future Foundation was going to use the Maker, but they immediately threw the character into Absolute Carnage, and it was, I mean, if it's clear, it's absolutely clear from Marvel's perspective which book they favored more. Venom and Absolute Carnage, they're like, hey, the Maker's in here, and they kind of downplayed the Maker in Future Foundation. And then in an argument I had with Tom Brevoort, he's like, oh, it'll all make sense, we'll make sense. And so they have to kind of shoehorn in this, well, there's a Maker in every reality because he gets kind of scattered, which again, it makes very little sense, and is even more goofy when in Venom, you've got the Maker, evil Reed Richards, in the Council of Reeds, which is it a Council of Makers actually, or is it the Council of Reeds from the old Hickman Fantastic Four storyline? Who knows? But it just continues to wrinkle and warp and confuse whatever was going on in Future Foundation, and whether they admit it or not, even Marvel knows this, and that's why they just started downplaying the whole thing. As a reader, everybody knows this. You can smell it, you can see it. It's not a surprise. And when you don't feel like the company producing the comic is fully behind the comic, you don't engage yourself. This was true when comics cost, $1.75. It's absolutely, double and triple true when the comics cost $3.99. It's just you're not going to take a $4 an issue bet on something that won't matter to continuity, will likely get erased by some other writer or just forgotten, and is going to last kind of an awkward like 5 issues and then vanish. And that's the challenge. And none of what I just said, by the way, is beating up on the creative team, the quality of the book. I mean, I didn't think the book was very good, but some people did, and good for them, and that is awesome. But regardless of whether you like the book, didn't like the book, the publisher saw it as a afterthought, treated it like an afterthought, and therefore, whether it was good or bad, it failed. 5 issues it got and gone, and that's unfortunately what it comes. But let me know what you think, because I'm bewildered a little bit. I'm scratching my head because with such ferocious defense, I had people really aggressively telling me absolutely not, no fan would ever pick up, ever, all caps, ever pick up on the fact that this book was headed for early cancellation. The publisher gave every, all caps. I mean, this is the mail I'm looking at. The publisher gave, Marvel gave every indication they're behind this book. The people responsible for that failure are you, the retailers, who are telling fans that it's not going to last. Well, I mean, okay, the window of being able to tell fans is pretty short, since I think it was canceled roughly 2 weeks after the first issue hit the stands. But uh, that's a remarkably quick feedback loop from shop to publisher that I wish would actually, be true, because then maybe other changes could happen. I mean, it often feels like feedback from the retailer gets to the publisher, roughly 3 years later, if at all. So if we're getting it down to 2 weeks, then happy days. I'll take that. I will take all the blame. It works. Anyway, what do you think? Do you see this coming? Do you see when comics are headed for early cancellation? Do you kind of scratch your head at when a publisher doesn't really seem to get behind a title? Do you think to yourself, why are they doing this at all? Um, I'm curious what you think as a buyer, as a customer, as a guest, as a reader. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. Hey, hit like, hit subscribe if you don't mind. This channel lives off your subscriptions, and it always is appreciated. Follow me on Twitter, Perch. Thanks for listening.